Okay, Glenn, the next common issue we've got on our list today is strange or loud noises coming from the cutting system. So we get a few customers that essentially report that, it sounds like a diesel engine, basically. What it might be, very loud. They can be incredibly loud if something goes wrong on that cutting deck system. And typically, what causes it, Glenn?
It's the same old story.
Yeah.
It's the grass being caught up above the blade guards.
Yep.
And they compact so tight, it actually flexes, and it does sound strange, but the blades flex so much that they actually hit each other.
They actually touch each other.
And you'll hear it sound like a chaff cutter.
Yeah.
And
it's terrible. So it's essentially,
you can we can't flex it that much.
We can't flex
sort
it
of see.
Right. So see how close the blades are together there at the moment. Well, if you get enough grass build-up on both sides there, they flex up on both sides, and then those blades will actually touch each other. To compound that issue, and I'll put an image up on the screen here to show you a blade screw that's actually worn. Now, these screws here, because they're in that direction there, and they're constantly doing this all the time, they wear the back of the screw. And as the back of the screw wears, the blade is able to go this way just a little bit more, just a millimetre. So this one comes a millimetre out, this one comes a millimetre out. Then you get grass underneath there as well that bends up the system, and the next thing you know, the blades are actually touching each other when they're going around.
Yeah.
So never reuse blade screws. That's probably the very first thing.
Always get rid of them.
Always change your blade screws. Even if you think the screw looks fantastic, just change them. Whenever you change your blade screws all the time. And just again, like Glenn said, clean, make sure it's all clean.
So it might be worth pointing out too that see this, all that wobble?
Yep.
That's exactly how you want it.
It's how it's supposed to be.
The blades are supposed to be spinning free. If they're jammed like that, you're putting extra load on your cutting motor.
Yeah, extra load.
So they're designed to sound like a tambourine when you shake them.
Yeah,
so
pretty much. Yeah.
All that's perfect. It's exactly what you want.
Yeah, and when you hear it start up, you'll hear the rattle when the robot actually starts up. Every time it starts its blades. Obviously, other noises are going to cause, like sticks. Things get jammed under it, and little tiny things, little tiny sticks, they can get jammed underneath these blade discs in such a spot that you will not know they're there.
Yeah.
And you'll swear there's nothing under there until you actually pull it apart properly. So it points back to cleaning again.
Yeah.
Points back to our video on cleaning again. Watch the video on cleaning because you really need to do it properly. Discs come off, blade guards come off. The collar, take the collar off as well when it goes through in the video. It's very clear in our video on how to do that. Take the collar off, check underneath the collar, anything
that's wrapped around that shaft.
Yep. Little seeds get in there. I mean, underneath the collar, typically you're going to start seeing more often than not, you're seeing strings and grasses that are actually really fibrous, that sort of thing.
You also want to check that these aren't wobbling, the discs aren't wobbling, because if that nut is loose,
correct,
they will wobble. And we just recently had one that made this horrible noise.
Yeah, that's right.
We didn't know what it was.
The squealing noise. That's right.
Yeah. And it was just that they were loose and worn.
Yep.
And the collar, which you'll see later,
yep,
was actually rubbing on the motor housing.
Correct.
So
and that was like a squeak when it started. So when it first started, it squeaked and then it ran perfectly.
Yeah.
And then when you turned it off, it squeaked again. It was a loud squeak. And it was actually quite a little bit baffling to start with. And it was just pure and simply because that 10mm nut in the middle of the disc there came loose, and it chewed out the inside of the collar, which again, we'll put a picture on the screen. We'll put a picture on the screen here of the collar. There's another picture we'll put up on the screen here, which is of the back of one of these discs, which obviously had something caught in there. But that's another thing. It just things get caught in there and they can make horrendous noises if something gets caught in there or if the blade tips are touching or something like that. So clean, and when you finish cleaning, clean it again.
Yes, that's right.
Pretty much, exactly right. So saves us having a robot in here getting repaired, and we open it up and we get pictures like this we'll put on the screen. Robots turn up like that, and they just simply clean. And it's not the customer's fault as such because they just don't know. When we say clean, they don't understand fully what we mean by that.
Exactly.
So you really watch our video again.
You can get bearing noises as well.
Yeah.
Not so much with the Luba 2. We haven't had bearing noises.
Luba 1 had a lot of bearing noise. Luba 2's been pretty good.
And then there again, that's probably mowing wet grass or in the rain.
Yeah, or even slightly submerged where they end up in a 2-inch deep puddle or something, just sit there wet for.
Another thing we should probably mention is the build-up of grass. The more grass you get built up under there, the more likely you've got of the grass forcing sticks into that rubber boot.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Actually, that's something we haven't even spoken about in a few of these videos now. We'll talk about it in the cleaning video of how to actually clean it properly. But the rubber boots under there and making sure that you keep stuff out of those boots. Yeah,
because that's what I say. We've noticed that if there's a heap of grass there, it actually sends little sticks and that towards those boots.
It actually pushes it in there. Yes. Right. It gives us somewhere for the stick to actually sit on and then pushes it in.
Exactly.
So you've already touched on it with the bearing noise, but that's really the only thing that can go wrong with the robot and have something wrong with it, really, when it comes to noise coming from the cutting system. It's really just bearings. They're direct drive. So there's not much else that can actually go wrong other than the actual motor itself. And typically that just means if it's noise, it's going to be the bearing. So if you think you've got bearing noise, the only way to check that, Glenn, I assume, so we're just going to take everything off, take the disc off, run it in manual mode. If it's still making the noise when there's no disc installed on the robot, then obviously the noise has to be coming from the motor.
Yeah, and you'll know a bearing noise. It's more of a grind sort of thing, isn't it?
Generally, it's right. It's a real growly type noise sometimes. Can be squeaky, or it could also stop the mower from going altogether. But then you're probably going to get a different fault. So that's that. Look, and like we've always said, if you think there's something wrong with the robot, or you're struggling, by all means, when you're our customer, call us. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. That's why we service our customers every day. That's why there's so many of us around here, Glenn.
Yes, there's a lot of us now.
We've more